it going, Arch?
Good. Hello, Jeff,
Jeff.
Adam, testing, Fairbanks testing. All right, can you guys hear us? Testing on Fairbanks. Unmute your speakers.
Are you trying to play the
I think it should be fine. I can do a quick test. Actually, I can have Zoom do a test for me. So it's the microphone is going up. Test speaker and microphone. There you go. Testing. That should work. Hello, sound? Jeff. Or not? I want to see if we are doing the FB stream or if they are. Okay, that's how I was supposed to do it. Oh, looks like that camera's not working. The rear camera, whatever that means. This one works, so that's good. Hello, IT, I need help.
what you do?
One of your cameras is broken in this room. It's fine. It does. The rear one, so that one I think it just comes up as a blank thing, but not that we need it. The front will work for us. Yeah.
I think that's probably been happening like all week.
No.
You just like learning spaces about that.
Chapel was trying to use it on Monday. It wasn't working.
This is why you guys open tickets.
Oh, I don't open tickets. I just like learning spaces.
Yeah, it's post hours. I just open the ticket, assign it to them.
I really like in like more, there's a digital signage, and every time I walk past it, it's the Windows lock screen. I would just take a picture of it and I put it in learning spaces. And the guy in learning spaces messages me and he's like, it's not like that according to like Windows Remote Desktop. And so I'll walk past it later that day and I'll snap a picture of it and I'll send it to that technician. He's like, why is this happening?
I don't want to touch it because I have that on my hands.
Yeah, makes sense. Are they all the same kind? Okay, there's two different kinds. Besides this one's. Okay. Pizza's delicious. Free pizza's the best pizza.
Yes.
I'm really interested in this because I don't really see the point of putting a lock on it if you're gonna leave the key on the lock.
Yeah, it's all, that's how it's been throughout this building. If you notice, that gets you into the the little cabinet down here.
Those are the keys that are in the external cabinet.
Yeah. Actually, the cabinet may actually be, it's actually unlocked.
Should probably tell Arsh that, or not Arsh, Arden that, because I'm sure he'd find it less funny.
Yeah, I think when they set up, they just forgot to take their keys from them.
It's like there's like a couple of cabinets like that too, and it's like I should just put something in there and then take the keys and be like, sweet, I've got this secure storage now in one of the. So let's not do that.
Video captured, display captured. I don't think I need a video capture from you, so I'm just going to remove that. Wait. All right, Vincent, we are managing the Facebook stream.
Okay.
Yeah.
So done.
It's all set up. Just have to hit go live once you're ready, and you should be good.
I'm ready. I thought they were gonna do this.
They are.
Okay.
Well, we asked them to start at 7:15, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're waiting for them.
Mm-hmm. And also for our people to come because they're coming from a class.
Anyone know any good jokes about Git? I've only got a few.
I've never heard these jokes.
My favorite is Git has ruined me because every time I go to a push door, I have to pull first just to avoid conflict.
Mm. Don't you have to close the door before you can actually use it though?
Testing 1, 2, 3. Can you guys hear me?
So I don't talk about it.
They might be picking up too much of the audio.
Yeah, probably. I mean,
Looks like they're going to pull it out of the current pool because they're right now hiring one service desk tech. So now there's 2 open, so they're probably going to hire both of them at the same pool, which would be nice because that would double my chances. My already pretty slim chances, but now they're double.
testing 1, 2, 3. Can people in the other locations hear me?
Yeah, I heard that, but I'm not fucking.
So I've got their audio coming through there.
Very good.
Could you guys say something
I
again?
can hear you and Juno.
It's like the most efficient.
You got them?
So turn your volume all the way up.
He took 3 days off and still outperformed everyone at the service desk in ticket closure.
Okay. It's turned up to the normal amount.
But why am I never so low? I'm like, you closed 80 tickets yesterday. What's wrong with
Yeah. And then I can leave my laptop settings the same.
this termination?
Yeah, we'll just adjust on the fly.
Termination.
Dope.
Sweet.
And then
Termination.
Also,
He gets like 300 in a day, which is fantastic. For his numbers, that is.
Yeah.
But like, even still, it's like,
I don't think we really care about that. Do we actually pull statistics? Do we actually pull metrics like that?
we do at the service desk.
Okay.
We don't really use them for anything other
Yeah.
than being like,
Like
wow, man, Scott's
because
killing
yeah,
it.
we are talking about the whole budget cuts. Like we should figure out some way to like measure people's performance.
We use Cheryl's statistics
Yeah.
at service desk.
Put them on the bell curve and like fire the bottom 10%. Like across the system, just like fire the bottom 10% performers.
The weird thing about like Cheryl's statistics though, like if you did that for student employees, that would make a lot of people look worse than others because like, so Bremner works every single morning,
Mm.
closes 4 times as many tickets as the next guy
Well,
because he comes in and the queue is just full of tickets that can be closed.
so yeah, student employees don't matter. We are like a rounding error in the budget. Like how much do student employees cost? I don't know, like $1,000 a month. That's just a round off error. We don't care about that.
Did anyone go to the like student protests that they did yesterday? Seen the pictures on Facebook?
I did.
My favorite one was cutting education is dumb, Levy.
I know. I saw that one.
It's like, there's quite a bit of salt in that, but I like it.
I also recognized people who are clearly not students in the pictures. So, like up front and center, there's what's his name, Ronnie Huchin, who's decent in Christians. At least was last time. I should actually just ask some questions. Best action meeting.
Are they saying something on the stream?
Hmm?
Are they saying something on the Hangouts or is this
On Slack, it was a private
this is
direct
Zoom,
message.
right, or something?
Yeah, this is Zoom.
So what's cool about Zoom, because I use Google Hangouts for most of all of my things, just because of convenience.
More professional, I guess.
I don't know why they decided to use Zoom.
I see a lot of corporations use it for their meetings.
Yeah.
I think Zoom has a higher like participant cap the Google Hangouts?
Does Google Hangouts even have a cap?
I know they do for like streams. So if you're going to stream through Zoom, you can have any number of participants, but if you're going to stream through Google Hangouts, you're capped at 10.
Well, Zoom, it depends on how much money you're paying them, actually.
I had a Zoom meeting at work and it was like 15 people.
Yeah. Also, if you don't pay the money, your meetings are limited to 40 minutes a meeting. And then you have to pay for how many presenters you want. So what we are going to do is,
I'm feeling better about Google Hangouts by the minute. Keep talking.
but yeah, what we are going to be doing is I think we are just going to be switching presenters. So that way we just have to buy the license for one presenter and not two.
Yeah, I want to know if there's a Zoom going on.
I'm saying not publicly, but we'll be starting.
So are there any features in Zoom that you guys like, prefer over Google Hangouts?
I think they do the
By
same
the
thing.
license, or? Huh?
Do the same exact thing.
Yeah.
Because you can definitely share your screen and stuff. 'Cause that's what really
So-
different about it.
I think Conroy was saying, or he's had bad luck with Google Hangouts, so he was like reluctant to use it.
There's also like GoToMeeting, which is also
Yeah.
similar to it. There's also Skype for business. But
Yeah, no Skype.
I think that one we can all agree on.
yeah. But now I think they're trying to
I
show.
don't even think I know my
Teams
password
or
for
something.
Skype, which is probably bad because it's my Microsoft account.
I don't even think I have a Hotmail account. Has that become a Microsoft account now automatically?
Maybe. Do you have an Office 365 account?
No. Why would I use that?
Do you have a UA account?
Yes,
That's a Microsoft account,
I guess. Yeah.
or at least has a Microsoft account included in it.
Yeah. I've sold my soul to Google. Like all my text editing, all my it's all on Google. I don't use Word anymore. I just open up Google Docs. I don't use Excel. I just open up Google Sheets.
I thought it was kind of interesting because like I have a lot of friends who are like adamantly against Google. I mean, I'm like, like, do I trust them with all of my personal information? Probably not. But are they convenient enough for me to not care? Absolutely.
I mean, I'm not important enough. Like no one's gonna go after my data. So, there's also not really interesting to find out.
I mean, if someone wants to steal my identity and all of my money, they can have it. They're gonna lose.
It's like, yeah, you see my identity. Like, you apply for a credit card, it's gonna get denied. Like, my identities don't work anything. Just just have it. We'll exchange identities. Like, you take mine, I take yours.
I will pay you to take my credit card. By the way, there was a 0-day bug in
On
Google Chrome, so
yeah.
if you haven't updated your Google Chrome today, you should do that.
I checked the one at work, that's up to date. And my phone just updates on its own.
Does it include Electron applications? Would that include Electron-based applications?
Potentially.
Using a Unify Chrome. I guess.
So the bug was
Whatever version they're
the bug was
using.
in one of the APIs.
Yeah, 'cause that would like affect Slack and Discord.
The bug was in an API, so I guess depending on if you're using that API or not, but I can try
I'm
and
trying to remember what API it was, and I don't.
I'm pulling up the article in random, I think.
I bet you it was the WebSQL. was having issues with this.
But yeah, we should be starting soon. I think they're still trying to set up like audio on their part.
Let's see if they come here.
It's the file reader API.
Yeah. File IO.
File reader, yeah.
Whatever it's called.
Use after free.
Conroy's the guy in Juno, right?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
from Juno.
I like so too. That's what I said.
I can mute it. I've told them to mute us. Mute everyone at once. So I'm just gonna check.
Yeah.
The muting and unmuting. You guys can watch some pandas while you wait. It's so exciting. Yes, just watching pandas do this thing. Now we're supposed to start at 7:15 because I thought this room there's supposed to be senior capsule in this room, but they got moved to some other room. I think Shiver today for some reason. Hopefully I'm getting the messages.
He was waiting on, gotta get some mics set up.
So one of my friends drew this really cool picture of like a rose in like the style of Van Gogh, Starry Night. It's super cool looking. And she gave it to me and I took it to work and I was like, so I got this thing for free and I think we should hang it up here. And Jeremiah, who's the interim Colin student coordinator, grabs it and it's like, there's only one place for this, and that is on the fridge. It was like, I mean, that's awesome, but also like, this is like good artwork with talent. The fridge is like,
I would see the footage.
yeah, but like
It's
there's
like
like this
cool.
weird stipulation where like, oh, your 6-year-old drew you a thing and it's probably bad. but it's going on the bridge anyway. And like that's kind of like the way he was talking about it. It was like, this is going on the bridge. I'm like, this is funny. It's great. Also, how do people art? Because I don't know how to art. I try to draw, and I'm like, wow, this is worse than stick figures.
Let's talk about this real quick.
See, I consider programming an art. I mean, we can just make an AI that draws for you.
That's true.
I mean, like,
Is it what is it? Emily Howell, something like that? The AI that like composes music, and like they
And
did
the NVIDIA one? Yeah.
but like they did a blind taste test, and people couldn't tell it apart from actual classical composers, which I think is awesome and super cool. Anyone who says AI will never replace creative arts.
I was going to say, I don't get classmates at chatting.
Yeah. We finally got another person to do a one.
So constitution to huh? This is
Muted. They're muted. Okay, now can you guys hear us?
Yeah.
Nope, still nothing.
Ah,
Oh, hey, yeah, we got one.
I got one thumbs up.
How about Fairbanks?
hold on, we can hear you.
Anything?
What on the screen? Can you like get on the screen?
Anchorage, can you hear us?
So actually, if you want to get on that screen, turn around because it's there you go.
They can't see me.
I'm just making sure that we're using the right mic.
Okay, maybe I'll beam a message to Fairbanks.
Just one second.
Still there.
Can
you
guys hear us?
Okay, we're using the right microphone.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, so you guys can hear us?
Is there more than two?
Hello.
Yeah, there's like clearly 4. Come on. There's at least 3 that are really frustrated graduate students right now. Yeah, I have not heard back from Fairbanks yet.
Fairbanks is screaming.
You put like a
No, still nothing. Fairbanks. Wait, did I see it? I think I saw a hand. Hey, there we go. All right, welcome.
I will. Okay, look, I see Marsh yelling in the corner of the
Yeah, there's like mics all over the place.
Okay,
There's
I
like a
wanna
mic
find
here
out
also.
if you're good. Yeah, hold up.
Are you?
It's so nice.
They're all on the same like input. Like, okay, so
Marsh, Fairbanks, you know?
it's like an,
You heard his voice.
You're using the wrong microphone, I thought.
That's probably why he stopped yelling.
We're so close. We're so close, guys.
But you know, them hearing us is.
like, see, the
Yeah,
thing is
But
that,
Maybe you can play with your volume for a minute. I'm pretty sure we're good to go. Like
because
we
I thought
tested this a
we
minute ago.
heard tell.
We heard Arsh talking.
Yeah.
they heard us talking.
Oh,
Okay.
hey, there we go.
Okay, it was me. Yeah,
All right. It's Adam. Sorry, guys. He's using Linux.
Yeah.
All right. Are we-
Not just Linux, but he's using Arch. ARCH,
Oh,
not
yeah.
Arch.
We heard some noise from the crowd.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, guys. There we go. We'll get started now. Welcome. We managed to only be like 10 minutes late. That's like amazing for a room full of developers. So March 7th, welcome. We're streaming on Facebook. That's pretty rad too. I think this might actually be a first that we managed to get, like, all of these rooms connected and working at the same time. Yeah, maybe we could offer this as a service from like the entire developer alliance to businesses, because apparently this is like not possible to pull off. Yeah, no, it took us like legitimately like 6 developers to make this happen. So yeah, perhaps there's a service there or a business model. We'll figure it out. But that being said, we're running late. I know Juno and Fairbanks have been waiting on us, so we'll get started. Adam Levy is a developer based here. He went to UAF and graduated, what, math, engineering?
Stats, actually.
Stats, okay, yeah, not computer science. But anyways, talented developer nonetheless. And he's gonna teach us about Git behind the basics. And then we'll follow that up with Conroy Whitney giving us some GitHub examples. All right, man, thanks.
All right, thanks, Jeff. I just want to start off by thanking the brave souls who decided to come down to the front and filled up the third row, because without the people filling up the third row, we would have had nobody sitting in the second or first row. So somebody has to take the lead there. So as Jeff said, I am Adam Levy. And before we get started, if you are following along at home or have your computers with you here, then you can clone this presentation. This is, I haven't tried this before, so we'll see how it goes. But this is actually just a rendering of some markdown that I wrote. So this isn't even like a Google slide thing. Hopefully it won't be too painful. I'm gonna be moving. Yeah, so that was on the last page. I'm just gonna go back to that really quick. And in case you can't see it, it's github.com/akdevalliance/git presentation. And if you don't have a thing that will render mark.
Link it on the slideshow.
Yes, I will. Thank you. Somebody's done this before. Yeah, I'm even gonna put it in code brackets. Yeah, so, oh gosh, and of course I botch it. This is not Discord. Discord has spoiled me with the triple slash and the enter behavior. All right. That's actually the best of both worlds because it's got the link and yeah, okay, I don't know. I'm gonna claim that was planned. So I hope that you can, in Fairbanks, I hope that this can be big enough. So can you guys see my command prompt here?
That's
Yeah, we got waves. We got hands.
All right, good. I hope you can, because that's going to be crucial. It's going to be not a fun presentation otherwise. All right, so as you said, I'm Adam Levy. I graduated from UAF. I've worked on firmware and done some systems programming in C since then, and I now write blockchain software in Golang. I'm not going to talk about that today. Well, I'll talk to you about it later if you want. But and I use Arch, by the way. So you can email me, or you can find me on GitHub or on the Dev Alliance Slack, but you won't find me on social media. All right, so just who here has heard of Git? I'm going to try to do this in the affirmative here. All right, who's used Git? Great, cool. Who thinks that they've gone beyond the basics already in their lives? All right. All right, that's good. That's not everybody, which means this talk won't be totally useless. For anybody who doesn't happen to know, it's a distributed version control software. It was created in 2005 by, wow, that's a bad typo, Linus Torvalds, not Linux Torvalds. But you know, it works specifically for Linux kernel development. And Git is not GitHub. I think Conroy will be covering that a little bit later. So why should you use version control? It should be fairly obvious at this point, but in case it's not, you get to track and share the history of all your changes. It's like, you know how when you were growing up, your mom marked your height on the wall over time? I feel like Git is kind of like that sometimes. I get to look at the history and be like, yeah, I made those changes. Or it's very shameful because then you're like, I wrote that bug. And you can't go from that. Or you look at the timestamps at today's presentation and you realize he wrote this today. Oh no. So why use Git specifically? Well, it's distributed, which means it's redundant. Everybody has a copy of the full history and latest commits, which makes it very efficient. You don't need to wait for somebody else. I mean, you ideally don't need to wait for somebody else to start doing your development. And it all operates locally with a very small footprint, so it's very fast. All right, you guys all knew what Git was, so that was not a useful slide. So this talk came about, Jeff and I were talking, and I was kind of reminiscing on my experience first learning how to code and first learning Git at UAF and talking to some friends who'd gone to UAA. And really, Git was this thing that I had to use to turn my homework in. And that's about as much as I got from classes. But on my own, I saw that it could be a pretty powerful tool. But I think a lot of people walk away from it not understanding why you'd use it. So this talk is for you if you're slow to commit, if you're reluctant to commit. This talk could help you with that. Or if you have merge anxiety, it's a very common symptom for people who've been exposed to Git. Or if you write commit messages like this, more work, oopsie, additional changes, or this very sinful period. Just period. Don't do that. We're going to talk about that. So when you first learn Git, you set it up the first day of class, and you don't remember doing that really. That was a blur. That was ages ago. And you used it after you're done with an assignment, not as part of your workflow. So I don't have it on me, fortunately, because it's a little embarrassing, but I looked at some commit history that I had from when I was going to school, and it was literally like a message to the teacher. It was like, please accept this. I know it's a little late. I worked really hard on it. That's how I use the commit message. So it's not what it's for, as it turns out. So raise your hand if you have heard of Git clone, used it, Git init. All right. You guys have all probably Git add, Git commit, Git push, you've done it. Git log, anybody use that on the command line? All right, hands are going down now. Git reset, that's a good one. It's not on the list. People are scared of the reset, very useful. I used it many times today in this project. All right, we're gonna cover some of these, but first we're gonna go, here's what we're gonna cover today. We're gonna review some basic Git concepts because we need to know them to be able to talk about the more complicated stuff. Basic anatomy of commit. Some commit message best practices. We're going to go through some branching and merging examples, some best practices for that, and if we have time, rebasing versus merging. So what I'm hoping to do in this is not spend a lot of time on the slides, but spend some time actually on the command line looking at the Git log and looking at some interesting histories that I've created in our examples and how we might deal with some of those situations. And we're gonna do it live. We're gonna do a merge that has a conflict, and we're gonna resolve it, and we're gonna feel good about it. We're gonna get over your merge anxiety today.
Is this being recorded? Yep. Okay.
Phew! I was really worried I was gonna have to start all over. That was gonna be really lame for everybody.
I'm tweeting it even though nobody in Alaska uses Twitter.
Is that like Git?
Getting 140 characters.
We're going to talk about character length when we get to commit message best practices. All right. It does let you go over, but people won't be happy with you. Maybe. I don't know. Depends if you have friends. And if you want to keep them. So how can you think of Git? Well, you can think of Git as a mini file system, and a commit is a snapshot of that file system at a particular point in time. And Git uses diffs to efficiently store additional snapshots of the same file. And of course, a commit has metadata attached to it, which we're going to look at shortly. So some terminology. The Git repository is the database of commits and the history of commits. The working directory, or sometimes called working tree, this is the actual place that you're modifying the files. And when you run git checkout, Git is going to modify those files for you, assuming that it's already saved all of those things, because it's not going to overwrite stuff that it hasn't saved. It's very safe that way. The head is a special word for the currently checked out branch. So you can think of it as like a commit chain. We're going to see a history of commits, and the head is like the head of the snake. So it's at the very top. And pro tip, which we're going to use probably, is this caret symbol. You can put that after any reference to get to the commit right before it. And you can use it repeated times to get to the commit right before the commit right before that. The staging area, often poorly understood. When you put together a commit, you have an opportunity to not just commit everything at once, and you get to break that up into logical changes or logical groups of changes, and the staging area allows you to do that. So let's actually take a look at, no, we're going to do that in a moment. This will be hopefully less boring or potentially more boring after this slide, depending on your preferences. So what is in a commit? Well, it's got these things: a message, a committer, an author, some dates, a tree root hash, which was really just a hash of the state of the files, and then of course the parent commit hashes. But let's actually take a look at the Git history of this repo, and I was very cautious to write nice Git messages for this. So we can see that we've got an author, a date, and this commit hash, if any of this data was changed, that commit hash would be completely different.
Can you size the screen up a little bit so we can actually see what
Yes.
okay.
Is that better?
So
Try typing something.
yeah, you got
You got some kind of message that you know.
That is actually, hey, Jeff, can you handle that? Because I think that's on your end.
sorry, what's that?
We
can't see what he's writing.
But you know what I can also do is, yeah.
There it goes. Yep.
All right, that's going to create a little space. Does that work better? Okay, so I just typed. Oops. Yep. Oh, I'm still in resize mode. That's fine. Apologies. So if we look at the Git log for this, I'm adding this graph option here, which is really handy when there's more than one branch to see the history. And if we wanted to see all the data, we could add nope. Never mind. That's what you get for doing it live. You can see the committer and commit date. And the reason that you have more than one, well, you have a committer versus an author is because someone might be committing a patch that somebody sent them via mail. So typically you never have to deal with that. All right, so the thing that we're not seeing here is a summary of the changes. And a great way to see what files have changed without looking at all the content is with the stat option. So we can see that there were just one addition and one deletion in the latest commit, because I just updated a single line. I updated the repo URL. And we can see that for all the commits. I find this really useful when I'm trying to see how much I need to pay attention to a commit that I've pulled. If it's touching files that I care about, then I'm going to pay more attention to it. But if I want to get more detailed, we're going to want to use the -p option, because this is actually going to show me the diff of what changed. And I'm doing this on the command line, and I highly recommend that you get familiar with the git log command line, because it can be very useful. It's a little daunting when you're first reading it, but once you start to get used to reading diffs, you can get a picture of what's happened in the repo very quickly.
How do you get out of command line?
Get out of what I'm looking at currently?
Yeah, because it has.
Right. So
State doesn't do it. So.
that's right. So what the program that we're actually in right now, that's a really great question. Git uses a number of other programs that are common Unix tools when you're using it on the command line. So when you're looking at the log is very long. It can't fit all on the screen. So we're in this program called less. And less uses the J and K keys to go up and down, and Q will exit it. I saw a Vim plugin the other day that is for new Vim users, and it exits Vim as soon as you open it. So, I just shut down the computer. So hold the power button down. Yeah, and we're gonna, I think, judging from the crowd, it would be a good idea to show everybody how to exit Vim. But, because we're gonna write a commit pretty shortly. All right, we've looked at the commit log. What are some things that we should notice about it? Well, let's talk about some committing best practices. Because before you get onto branching, you're gonna wanna write some good commits. And why do we even have a commit message? I mean, the code is self-documenting, isn't it? Right?
Yes.
Right, that's right, the answer is yes, if you're writing in Golang.
What you just did is you looked at the commits and so if it says, oh, this got changed, you don't have to look at the code.
Absolutely, absolutely. Code is pretty verbose. I mean, I don't like to read it. Actually, I do, but not if I don't have to, if I'm in a hurry. So the commit message should tell me what and why, but not how. And that's pretty important because the how is the code. So don't repeat yourself. But what's pretty important, sometimes why. And then there's a certain convention, a structure to good commit messages where you have a short title written in the present imperative tense. We're gonna take a look at that. And then, put some additional details in the body of the message. There are some de facto conventions like keeping the subject shorter than 50 characters and wrapping the body to 72 characters. And the reason for that is that the Git log is going to indent stuff quite a bit. So it's nice if it doesn't actually wrap on the terminal screen. So a good commit message should answer this question. If applied, this commit will, and it should describe the change of the code. And this is talking really about the subject. The body can be more descriptive for sure. So here's some good commit messages. Include stack trace with error messages. Refactor subsystem X for readability. Some bad ones are fix the bug with the server. Forgot to include this. Updating the API. Improvements. And a lot of this I got from this article, which I think is really good on commit messages and goes into it in quite a bit more detail. Yeah, I will link it in the Slack later, for sure. But if you follow the link to the repo that I posted, then you can get to this page, which is page 8. Alrighty, so we can take a look at some of my commit messages, just I can show you how beautiful my commit messages are. Should tell you exactly what you need to know here. But that's boring. The interesting thing about a good commit message is that you need to know your audience. And hopefully your audience is other developers who know what's going on. So you shouldn't have to explain every little detail in it. If we go ahead and go into the presentation examples, and if you've done the submodule commands, then it should be there for you. We can take a look at this log really quick. And let's go to the beginning. It's the beginning of time. I jumped to the very bottom of all the commits there with Shift-G, if you're following along at home. And this program actually started out as goobar. And if we actually go ahead and let's take a trip down memory lane and use git reset with that commit hash. And we're going to use, actually, we're going to be safer. We don't want to reset. We want to just check it out. And this is telling us we're now in a detached head state because no branch actually starts here, which means we're just visiting. And if we want to get back to a not detached head state, we'd do git checkout and then a branch name, like master where we just were. But we can run foobar, except we can't because it's goobar. We messed up when we wrote this program and accidentally made it print out goobar. So what does the next commit do? Well, that's right. Thank you. It's a great opportunity. It's just second nature now. So let's say you're in Vim. Well, the first thing you're going to want to know is to leave Vim, which is going to be :Q. And it showed up at the bottom of the screen. I'm going to do that. It's happened so fast. I'm going to do it again for everybody. It's :Q. Enter. Yeah. you're going to want to write that down in your notes. It's going to come up later. Like if this is the one takeaway from the whole presentation, colon, Q, enter. All right, but here's the thing, because everybody, you're going to want to add this to your repertoire of Vim, because everybody first gets in here and they start bashing the keyboard and they're like, oh no. No, all right, so here's what you do. You're going to want to, you're in insert mode. You got to hit escape, and you got to hit escape a lot. Once is never enough. And now you're going to hit colon Q. Oh no. All right, we want to discard these changes. So Vim is very friendly. If you can read things very quickly, it will tell you exactly what you need to do. So you need to add the exclamation mark, which is telling it absolutely quit. It's like you're yelling at it. All right, so remember, escape 5 times, colon, Q. All right. So by this point, we've looked at this file so much, we should be pretty familiar with it. So we're going to start reviewing the changes just using the diff, all right? And we're gonna go through the history. Oh God, what did I do there? That's what happens when you hit Q before you hit the colon. That's different. All right. So we're going to go ahead and check out master again. So this just moves the working tree, the working directory, the file we were just looking at, and modifies it to match the latest commit on master. But I'm going to open up the log again. We're going to use the graph. And before we look at all that complicated stuff, I've jumped to the very earliest commit again with Shift G. You can see the end at the bottom of the screen there. The next thing we did here is we corrected our mistake, is we print foo instead of goo, because that was a silly goof there. All right, I'm gonna take a look at the diff by adding the -p option here. I'm gonna jump to the bottom. So we can see that the very first commit here, the diff, you see it below it, we're just adding the file. All right, now in this next commit, we're doing exactly what we expected. We're seeing, okay, all the places that said goo, they now say foo. All right. Now we're getting fancy with it, because I'm going above the diff here so we can look at the message. Refactor printing to work on any 2 strings. All righty. So we can see that pretty much replaced the whole file, but what we're really doing now is we made this a function, and we're passing an array, or whatever you do that, whatever they have in Python. I only use Python because other people can read it, not because I'm good at writing it. All right, it's getting messy with all the diffs. So let's stick with the messages here. We added a helper function, all right. And now we're starting to we're getting fancy here. And with this font size, it looks pretty messy. So I know you won't be able to read everything, perhaps, but I want to see this, if you can see my mouse, this graph here, because we want to sort out what this log is telling us about what happened in the history. So each commit has a little star next to it. So this star for this commit here, that's happening on the left branch. And this one here, up here, that's happening on the right branch. And they always appear in chronological order in time, which can make it a little confusing to read, because you might see a number of commits that were made chronologically in time, but on a different branch. So that's just something to pay attention to when you're reading it. But one thing to note is that commit 76313 is pointing to this commit down here as its parent, and commit 5C7F is also pointing to this commit as its parent. So what's going on there? Well, we branched from this commit down here, and then different changes were made on each branch. So we can see that these labels here in the commit log are indicating what branch points to that current commit. So if we were to check out print helpers pre-merge, we'd be on this commit. And this is what this is. It's called print helpers pre-merge because this is before we merged the print helpers branch into master, which is what happened up here. And this merge commit is pointing to these two diverging commits. And this is a merge that we're going to do right now, and we're going to find out that it happens really smoothly because there are no conflicts. We're going to find out why. So let's go ahead and check out print helpers pre-merge. So we now have another file here, printers, which got added. And if we look at the log from this point, we just see this one commit. We're not going to see all of the history. We're just seeing this one branch. And if we look at what we were seeing up here, we're here, add printers. But back on the master branch, master pre-merge, another commit was made to ignore a file. And that doesn't conflict at all with our commit. But eventually we want to include that on this branch. So if I run git merge master pre-merge, what I'm telling Git to do is I'm telling it to get the changes on master pre-merge from that branch and merge it into this current branch. And this is dropping us right into Vim because Git was not able to just simply advance the pointer. It actually has to combine the divergent history. So it has to do what's called a merge commit. And this is just the default message for the merge commit. We don't need to modify that at all because we didn't make any changes. So here's another Vim command for you. This should go in your notes. You want to save this merge commit. So don't just quit it immediately because then it won't accept that. You're going to want to do W for write and Q for quit altogether, and then enter or X. Don't get fancy on us. We just learned how to exit Vim. All right. All right. Now, if we look at the history, this looks exactly like what we saw before, just without any further history beyond it, because that's what I did ahead of time. So I've ruined my example, basically. I had this all set up to be able to do this. And so now this matches what the print helpers branch was on. I'm sorry if that's a little confusing. I'm going to pause just for a moment. Does anybody have any questions so far? This could be a really good or a bad sign.
I just haven't been able to find your graph that you have up there at all. So I'm in the examples, I found it.
Okay. And I haven't been able to haven't been able to see that graph. So did you go into the Git presentation examples folder?
Yeah, and I have not been able to find goo outline, whatever it is.
Goo bar? Yeah, well, it should be foobar when you first enter that, because that's the latest commit, is it's been changed to foobar. But if you run git log -- graph from that folder, you did? Do you see the history now?
I see history, but my history is actually.
That's because we're on a different branch. So the history that we're seeing right now is starting from the place that my branch is on. And so I'm earlier. If I added -- all, that's going to show all commits. And does yours look like this? Or something similar? I've now made additional commits, so mine will look a little different than yours. Yours might start there. All right. I'm going to push forward because that merge was trivial. We didn't have to do anything because none of the changes overlapped on each other. But if we go ahead and check out we're going to check out master pre-merge conflict. So we look at, actually, I'm going to start looking at the history from master. So there's a branch called conflict that has some changes, and they overlap with other changes that I made on master. And this is where we're going to run into a merge conflict, because whenever you have two branches that change the same line in the same file differently, Git will not know what to do. Git doesn't know your code. It just knows what you added and what you deleted. And so when it doesn't know how to resolve that, it just, well, we're going to see what it does. And it looks a little messy, but it's very simple to resolve. So I'm going to go ahead and check out master pre-merge conflict. So this is master before I've attempted to merge in conflict. And there are some commits on master that are going to conflict with conflict. So from here, we're going to run Git Merge Conflict. And let's take a close look at this output here. Auto merging printers.py, merge conflict in printers.py. Auto merging foobar.py, merge conflict in foobar.py. All right, so the merge has failed at this point, but we're not failures. We can resolve this. Any time that it says conflict for a file, that means that you need to go into that file and find where Git has modified the file, which it will be fairly obvious. And I'm going to do this in Vim, but you don't have to. You can use your own text editor. So immediately at the top of the file, we happen to find our first conflict. And let's break this down so we understand how to read it. The equal sign here, that is breaking up the two options that Git has. These are the same lines, and Git didn't know how to merge it. Head, which is the branch that we're merging into, that was master, pre-merge conflict. That's what this has. That's what head has. And we're trying to merge in this. So we can do whatever we want here. We could delete this whole thing, and Git wouldn't know that we had left the file in a bad state. And we're going to be a little picky. We're going to say we want to keep our name for the function print pattern. We don't like this name print AABB. That's messy. So I don't want that line, but I will say that print string n times is more descriptive. So I'm going to go ahead and keep that change. So I'm going to take those lines out, and then I'm just going to remove these meta characters here. That is resolving our first merge conflict. Now we've got another merge conflict down here because they changed the function name print pattern to print AABB, and we're not using that. So we need to get rid of that. We've now resolved the conflicts in this file, and we're going to save and quit, :WQ. Now we've resolved one. If we look at Git status, you have unmerged paths. Fix conflicts and run git commit. So, but we're not done. We need to do the same for printers because we accepted their name print string n times, but we have a comment that they don't have, so we're going to save the comment. Okay, that conflict is resolved. Any questions about how those were resolved?
It looks like you're using your mouse. I can't quite tell.
There's no mouse use currently.
Okay, just checking.
Okay.
If you like a graphical merge, the best visual merge you'll see is in VS Code. It just says which one do you want to keep. You click it, and then it tells you save all of them.
I am using deliberately the most archaic tools. And
that was the best merge conflict builder.
for sure, there are easier ways to do this. If you can do it the hard way, you will never be daunted by a merge again. But use tools, use good tools, and get to know them. So I don't have anything against other editors or distros. People can do whatever they want, and I don't judge you openly. All right, so I think that the important takeaways here is that this is what Git left us. It told us, okay, these are the lines that you have in your current branch, and these are the lines in the thing that you're trying to merge, which is called conflict. That's why it says conflict down there. That's just the name of the branch. So you get to pick and choose what you want. Sometimes it's really simple. I say, well, I obviously want the thing that I'm merging. I'm going to get rid of the other one. But sometimes there are changes in both that I want to keep, which is what we had in both of these. So once that's saved, we have another final step, which is we need to tell Git that we have resolved the merge conflicts and to commit the files exactly as they are. Now, if you want to be naughty, you could force yourself into a bad situation where you tell Git, yeah, it's resolved, but you actually didn't do anything on the file. Don't do that. Open the file. Find all the places that you have like 5 equal signs. Just put that in a search field, cycle through the file. That's how I resolve merge conflicts, and then I look at each one individually. But if you plan correctly, you generally won't have too many, or they'll be really simple, and you'll know when they're about to come up.
Can you speak on that? Because like way back in the day when, I mean, I'm still not an expert like you, but I used to like tab things and change the format. And when it comes to committing and merging, those files are mayhem.
Yeah.
Like, can you maybe touch on like, you should be coding in a way that makes committing avoid merge conflicts.
Right. So one of the reasons that, this is actually one of the reasons that integrating Git into your workflow will lead you to write better organized code. Merge conflicts happen when the same line in the same file is changed in 2 different commits that you're trying to merge. If you and another developer are working and you guys are both modifying the same file, you're probably overlapping your work. Or your code is designed in such a way that there are so many interdependencies that you both have to change the same line for different reasons. And that's a situation that you should try to avoid. So where it's really nice is where you've got code isolated so that you can work in a set of files and you know the other person can work in another set of files. And if that's the case, you'll never have conflicts. The worst you'll have is incompatible code because you didn't communicate about the APIs or, you know, and I mean just mean the function names or whatever it is, the ways that your code is interacting with each other. So that conversation has to happen up front anyway, typically. But be aware when you're modifying something that someone else depends on, uses, or when you make a modification in your section of the code where, well, now to use my code, you're going to have to change all your function calls. I did it for you. I've made a commit over here on a branch. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And then you have to communicate with that other developer. And one of the best practices for merging is that the person who wrote the changes needs to do the merge. Because you know, you both have, ideally, you and the other developer that you're working with have a shared knowledge of the code base. But the only person who knows the latest code that you just wrote is you. So you should do that merge. And this might be a reason that you do a rebase, actually. Because then when the other person goes to, so you're working on your feature branch, blah, 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 blah. Other changes are being made to the core code on the development branch. When you want someone to pull your feature branch into the development branch, you want that to be as painless as possible for that person who's actually in charge of development, the develop branch. So ahead of that, you need to have pulled in all of the changes that were happening on develop while you were doing your changes. And you need to make sure that all those merges get resolved and still work with the changes in develop. That way your code is compatible. And when they merge, Git will see all those other times that you pulled in those commits. It'll see how you have all these merge commits that point to the things that are in the other branch, and it'll say, oh, we already got that. We can just move the head of development to the top of the head of the feature branch.
Is there a recommendation on how many times you should do that? Is it like twice a day? Like
I think it depends, how often you pull and merge in from develop.
Did it freeze? Yeah. Did ours freeze or did theirs freeze?
And we move next.
No, it's their stream that froze.
Yeah, because
Yep, there you go. His computer crashed.
His machine probably crashed or something. That's why. Oh, fixing power.
The power went out.
Yeah. Jeff just said fixing power, so maybe he just ran out of battery.
Oh, on laptop. Okay.
So I've never used Vim.
Oh, you've never used Vim?
Yeah, I've never used it. How bad is it really? 'Cause
so it's not that bad, but if you want to get to like the stuff Adam was doing, like quickly highlighting lines and everything, put lines and stuff like that, you just sort of know the shortcuts. But the
there's just no mouse input, so everything is keyboard shortcuts.
Yeah. So the hardest thing is, like he said, you have to sort of wrap your mind around these two modes. There's insert mode and then there's command mode. So basically, if you try typing stuff while you're in command mode, nothing's gonna happen.
Hey guys, Adam's laptop lost power, so give us just 1 second, and then we'll get that going so we can hear all of you. And then Conroy, if you would want to jump on and jump into get examples. Adam was actually just saying he was kind of at the end of his presentation, so sorry the end got cut off, but we'll be back up in just a minute.
Yeah.
So on avoiding merge conflicts, my theory is do as much code as you can by yourself before you have everybody do their easy. That's a good solution. And your messages can be more important because you change your code. But as soon as you get to that first step, then all of those tactics.
But simply if you start getting deleting an entire line, you should say,
rebasing often I always rebase just because I always want
stuff was negative.
Yeah.
Sorry, no merge.
Yeah.
Always gonna merge.
It just looks messy. It's harder to read what happens.
Exactly. So they always rebase that way. Their files get put in, then it replays yours on top. And if there is going to be a merge conflict, it happens on your machine, not when you're actually merging, because it doesn't know how to replay yours back. But that rarely ever happens.
For sure.
So rare.
We were.
I'm just walking around with the mic in case anybody thinks I'm being weird. This way, everybody can still listen.
What were you gonna say, Luke?
Before I commit, always I just has been said. Just I'm a newbie programmer on the web for lots of years.
No. He's been programming for lots of years, but I used to always do his commits. But anyway, before.
Yeah. If you're using Git, every system like Git, you can set the default editor, and on all of my systems it's set as nano.
And Git will let you do that now, you know, Windows. It'll let you use
Yeah, I don't use Windows.
But
yeah.
I use Git.
But
Yeah, that's the nice thing about Rebase is Rebase would pick up a series of commits and replay it on top of the history. And so then it looks like it looks like you did everything sequentially on top of other people's work.
Pull request.
Yeah, they start
There's a pull request. No actual code in it. We had a UI, but then there was a nice comment that said, hey, I worked for somewhere near Seattle, Claw for the Forest Service.
You only clone once, so
responded back to the GitHub pull request that said, yeah, we drive by Uniclaw all the time with our father, and that was it.
Everything they do,
they called him by his first name because it was some random dev on one of these other guys' accounts. And so we didn't think anything of it.
And then 2 days go by, we find out that it was the Estonian president learning how to code again. So they review that.
That's a useless command.
Yes. And so it was funny that Lucas responded back.
That's super easy, right?
Hey, Jeff, I think Conroy's ready to start. Do you need to do anything to make him the presenter?
I don't think so. I think if Conroy just takes over.
I think you get put in now.
Yeah, Conroy, you just make yourself the host.
Even with like commit,
And start the screen sharing, we should be good.
I know exactly what files have changed, and then some things I forget what I changed. So then I git diff, the name of the file, it shows you what changes in that nice format. So learn to read your diff is super easy. It's line by line. So the process means that line has been.
Might also be able to just assign him.
That line has been removed. If you have a minus and a plus.
Cool. Can you guys hear me okay?
That means a line.
It's a little quiet, Conroy.
A little quiet. Let me see what I can do.
Well, no, I think we're good. We're good. I don't think you need to do much.
Okay.
Oh, actually, no. Turn up the input volume. That'd be great.
Yeah, let's see what we can do. Is it too loud?
Nice.
All right. I tend to mumble and talk quiet anyway, so this is good.
Okay. Hey, just real quick, Fairbanks, can you like flop your hands or something and let us know, like, is Conroy's audio good? Nice.
Flop your hands.
The stress sign or the I'm okay sign? I never remember.
Funny. So apologies in advance. I woke up in Tennessee this morning, or technically it was last night in Alaska time. So I've been up for about 22 hours. So if I don't make any sense, let me know. No offense taken. So thank you, Adam, for that awesome presentation on Git beyond the basics. So a little bit background about myself. So I live in Juneau. I lived north of Anchorage for a couple of years. I've been doing software engineering for, I don't know, 10 or 15 years. Went to computer science, bachelor's degree, but I'm kind of lazy. And so I don't use the command line that much. I mostly use GitHub. So that's what this workshop is about. Originally, it was going to be like if everybody had their laptops, but I'm looking around at least at like Fairbanks and people don't have laptops. So I think what I'll do in the interest of time and public safety is just go through just kind of the flow on how I usually use GitHub. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool. So.
Hey, Conroy, could you turn your mic down just a hair? It's just a little tinny on our end.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
All right, cool. So this is going to be in Ruby for those of you, I know Adam just had his in Python. So I mostly do Ruby on Rails and React Native. I help startups build their MVPs. So we do validation, prototyping, building, and scaling. So that's the business that I run here in Alaska, mostly with remote clients. But so I love Ruby. I've been using it for a long time, and hopefully it's readable to everybody. Cool. So this workshop, the idea is that we're going to practice, like, if this was a real open source project and you saw some issues that you wanted to, like, create an issue on GitHub, and then maybe you create a pull request, and then that gets merged in. So it's kind of the flow of how projects really work in the real world. So for those of you not familiar with Ruby, Rubocop is just a linter. It just sees like if there's any static analysis things wrong with the code itself, and then RSpec is like a automated test suite. So the first issue that we can look at is like, okay, so I have this, I just checked it out, right? And here in the README, it says, you can actually do this if you want. It's on the AK Dev Alliance. It's called the Pull Request Workshop. But it says, okay, go ahead and like run the linter, run Rubocop and RSpec. well, like this doesn't work right out the gate, right? So that's kind of a problem. So what I'm going to do is, this is again like just a fake repository. I'm just going to create a new issue and be like, hey, like Rubocop doesn't lint. So like you want to be descriptive when you're writing things for open source projects, right? So you'd be like, hey, yeah, thanks. I just checked out master and ran Rubocop and got this error, right? So like if all you did was submit that issue and just leave it like that, that's probably okay. But we're going to go one step further because we're going to pretend like we're also helpful open source contributors and figure out what's going on here. So Rubocop is saying that we have an unused method argument, which means essentially like here in this file says add, this variable b isn't being used. We're like, oh, well, holy crap, like the method add is actually adding a to itself. So there's a methodology called test-driven development, which is like when you have your test suite that you run, again, this RSpec is just a test suite runner, right? You always want to keep it green. But in this case, obviously there's something wrong with our test suite because that shouldn't be green because this method is obviously wrong. It's not even using the second parameter given there. So in test-driven development, what you do is you first make the test turn red, you make it fail, and then you fix it so it goes green again. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this test better. The add method, we're going to give it two different numbers this time. So instead of 2 and 2 equals 4, we're going to give it 2 and 3 equals 5, and run our RSpec. And like, okay, so there we go. Now we actually see, I don't know if you can see that okay. You expect to get 5, we got 4. So now if we fix this and say add a plus b instead of a plus a, oh, now it's green. Also, if we do Rubocop, it should lint okay. Cool. So I did this all on master. If I did git status like Adam was showing us, but don't commit just to master. So there's something called git flow. I think there's a whole diagram. I don't know where it comes from. This guy, I think. Anyways, it's the idea that you do branches and you merge those branches back in, right? So you never are actually working on master because then if everybody's working on master, then nobody's working on master. So we create that feature branch. So what we're going to do is be like features. Actually, let's call this bug fix. So we're going to do fix add method. So now we're on a new branch, right? That's pretty descriptive. It's a bug fix, and what are we doing? We're fixing the add method. So I just always just add everything, and then I do diff cache to see what I actually changed. So a plus b, great, and then so I changed the test too. So I'm going to commit this and be like fix add method to use both parameters. And then I'll also say something like update add specs to prevent like false positive, right? That makes sense? Cool. So now per Adam's thing, git log. So I've got this new commit, right? But it doesn't live anywhere yet. It's only on my computer. So if I were to go like over here on code, I still only have this one branch. So I'm going to push that up to GitHub. In Git, there's a thing called remote, and this one, the origin is pointing to GitHub. So that's what is set by default. If you were to go into like this code and do this clone or download and do git clone, it sets up that origin by default. But this is a command that I type like 100 times a day. Not really. I don't create that many branches. But I'll do like a kind of analysis on it real quick. Git push, we know, right? That's to push changes up. But U is like shorthand for like, man, what's the?
Upstream.
It's upstream, yeah. But I think there's like a really long name for it. Yeah, set upstream. Honestly, I forget what that is. I just know that this is the command that I always run, and I don't even know why. It's just habit at this point. But essentially what that's going to do is create a new branch on the GitHub. And then when I push and pull, it's going to be like synced with that branch. You don't have to do anything special from that point on. It just knows, oh, this is the one. It's like where I should be pushing and pulling from. So GitHub, yep.
Just to fill in on the upstream option. Upstream as a concept is you can have more than one remote on a repo. So your friend might host it, another person might host it, and you could have multiple remotes that you push to. Setting upstream is telling Git, this is the official upstream remote that if I say push, just default to pushing it here. If I say pull, default to pulling it from here. And we call it upstream because typically this would be the place that other developers would be pushing the official repo or something like that rather than some other fork that someone's pulled. Typically it's just your own repo though, so.
Cool.
Anyway.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and I think you're totally, that must be why, then you don't have to like designate what branch you're pushing to in the future. When you just do git push, it just assumes it already knows what branch that's supposed to be. Anyway, so going back to being lazy, so GitHub creates this nice little thing, right? This yellow thing saying, oh, hey, we notice there's a new branch that's different from master, compare and pull request. So if you did your commit messages right, it'll kind of already fill this in for you, right? So fix add method to use both parameters is an OK pull request name, and then update add specs. Well, that's not so great. So here's what I like to do in the git command, or the area here. This creates nice little checkboxes, which is pretty neat because when you create a pull request or whatever, you can come back later and actually check them. So you can kind of use it as your own to-do list. If you wanted to add like another one, you do that too and update the comments. So like as you're going through in this long list like pull request, you could be you know, kind of changing what's actually in that pull request and seeing how much you are progress-wise, how complete you are. But anyway, so this pull request fix add method, because we have this integrated test, we have Circle CI here. Apparently there's some failing tests, which is actually based on my configuration, not our actual thing. So that's unfortunate, but that's okay. We'll ignore it, which is a terrible thing to do. We're just going to pretend like it turned green. But so back to what Adam was showing earlier, where you can do like git show -p, and you actually see like, you know, what was changed over here. GitHub has this nice little files changed. So that's the same thing, except it's just nice and graphical, right? One of the other cool things is that you can have reviews. So you'd be like, we don't have approved. You can actually make it so that people have to approve it before you can commit it. But you'd be like, hey, good catch. And that's just like, so you can have other people on your team look at the code before you merge it. One of the really cool things that you can do is, so we have this issue, right? That was about, it broke. Thanks, Adam. Rubicon doesn't lit, right? So this is issue number 3. You can actually put in here, closes number 3. And I think there's a whole number, you can see that it auto suggested, right? So you can be like, which one? 3. There's a whole bunch of like synonyms for this, like resolves or something like that you can find online. But essentially what it means is that when I merge this and confirm merge, it will actually always make sure to delete your branch too. Otherwise you have a bunch of stale branches. Yeah, so it automatically closed this one. So it says, hey, I checked this out and this ran. It's like, okay, we'll fix this, and it closed with this pull request. Does that make sense? So I guess my point is that when you kind of use the verbs that GitHub allows you to, it starts connecting all the dots for you so that, you know, you open an issue that you can, you know, make a pull request and make the fix for, but then it'll connect it to on the interface. So when people are browsing the project, like I don't know how many of you have gone into like an open source GitHub and looked at like the closed issues and trying to see like, because you're getting a certain error, right? And you're like, who else has gotten that error in the past? And there's a whole discussion about it and what sort of pull request did they do to try to fix it.
Ends in won't fix.
Yeah, right. Yep. So I'm assuming, Adam, this is the same thing from before. Switch to the correct programming language. Let's see what he put in here, Jeff. Nice. Nice passive aggressive. So conflicting, huh? You could be like, let's see if there's some labels on here. Won't fix. You can write your own macro. Cool. Yeah, and Adam has that one with fixes issue. So there's a couple other examples in here. I don't want to be too pedantic, but if you want to, you can go through, like, for instance, there's some terrible spelling issues. One of the things that GitHub lets you do is you can actually do edit files in line, which is like super lazy, but experience with creating pull requests and open source. And so down here, because you're editing this file in line, what's cool is you can either say commit directly to master, which, like, if it was something simple like on a README is probably okay, but you might have some merge conflicts, or you can create a new branch right here and be like update README. Or rather, that's pretty lame. Let's do README spelling errors. Yeah, so you don't have to. Okay, so resolve conflicts. What did I do? Help. I've actually never got to this page before. I guess this is why I don't edit things in that. Let me do that. Cool.
Hey Conrad, that was my bad. I created a merge conflict for you there.
Did you commit that directly to master?
I did.
That's fun.
I was in
Yeah, well, there you go. That's why you don't do things directly to master. That's awesome. So yeah, so feel free if you want to go through here. There are some more issues with the code itself.
Immediately closed.
Correct programming language.
I always do that wrong. Close issue. Closing in favor of number 5.
James said that when you write fix.
Commit, you do fixes or something where you do the hash in that number, it links them, and then we'll auto close that
that issue when the pull request is moved in. So you can tie it down to the Git issue, and then they're also linked to each other. So you can see all the details between them. It's really useful.
Could everybody hear that?
No, would you say that again?
I'll repeat it. So if you write fix issue and then the issue number in a commit, when that gets merged into master, it will automatically close the issue.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, so I'll leave it there again in the interest of time. But again, there's like some other issues in here where these methods aren't right. You can feel free to introduce your own PRs if you want, if you have your computer with you. Otherwise, yeah, I'll give the time back. But this is essentially, I wish I had known this flow like a few years ago, because this is pretty much what everybody that I've worked with in the last few years does. Like, it's pretty, I guess, industry standard at this point. This is how you use Git and GitHub and Teams and collaboration and stuff like that. There's even really cool trackers. I think like one is called waffle.io that actually use your Git issues as like kind of the lean Kanban. So it moves things through, you know, what's in progress and stuff like that. But behind the scenes, all it's doing is updating Git issues. So yeah, it's a pretty, or a GitHub issue. It's a pretty powerful tool. Any questions or anything that I missed? Did I completely blank on something? Cool. I'll take that as a no.
Sweet. Thanks, Conroy. So yeah, that's awesome. Can we get a round of applause for the presenters? And also just like I feel like even though we did have one small hiccup, that was just because like we didn't plug in a laptop. That's ridiculous. Yeah, we should really monetize this as a service. You get 6 developers, we all show up, we hover over laptops and make sure that your conference happens. Thanks everybody for coming out tonight. If there's one takeaway, it's probably that if you're not using version control, you really should. It's also that you should never develop on master.
:Q.
If you find yourself in Vim.
Exclamation mark. That's
yeah,
right.
also, if you're Atom, use the most archaic tools you can find.
Become an expert in them. Own the craft.
Yeah, own the craft. All right, I think that's a good note to round out. Fairbanks, thanks for showing up, guys. This is awesome. Juno, thanks for showing up. Super fun. So once again, tonight, food and beverages sponsored by Pure Storage and Geeks in the Woods. And Juno, there's 2 of you, so like go out for dinner and let us know, and like I'll pay for that out of my pocket. You guys are awesome. Thanks again for coming, and we'll see you guys soon. All right.
Let's give Jeff a hand.
Oh, sorry. For those of you who don't know, Pure Storage is a block storage company. They make rack appliances. Jeremy Mayfield from the VMware users group hooked them up with us. And Jim Willis was actually going to be here. He was wrestling with his 4-year-old and unfortunately tore his rotator cuff and is suffering the same fate that I suffered in December. So I guess it is the season for shoulder surgeries. Or yeah, maybe we could get a Seattle division of the Alaska Developers Alliance. Side note, just like another tangent, Yukon, Canada is actually looking at making an Alaska Developer Alliance channel, which I think would be hilarious. But also like, right, I mean, like we're that much closer to being our own country. So on that note, guys, and we'll see you at the next one.